Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are.
That's the commitment we made.
Today's remarks repeat what President Biden said last October.
So are you saying that the United States would come to Taiwan's defense if China attacked?
Yes, we have a commitment to do that.
That's not official U.S. policy. The Taiwan Relations Act obligates the U.S. to enable Taiwan to maintain a sufficient self-defense capability and maintain the capacity of the U.S. to resist any resort to force. But despite U.S. weapons sales to Taiwan, the U.S. has been ambiguous whether it would intervene militarily. And the U.S. acknowledges that all Chinese on both sides of the Taiwan Strait maintain that there is one China, and Taiwan is a part of China.
So you're saying a demonstration explosion?
Yeah, at higher altitude.
And is this a bluff, or are we really willing to use nuclear weapons?
I think that depends on folks in the room, but I think in a no-kidding Taiwan scenario, if we are really facing the prospect of defeat, we should be willing to use nuclear weapons. It might not be nuclear weapons on Taiwan. It could be a tactical nuke against invading U.S. or intervening U.S. forces.
Oh, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. And yes, Sleepy Joe has done it again. He had to open his big gob and cause an international incident. The clip you saw at the end about the woman saying that, they should be using nuclear weapons. I'm going to be going over this MSNBC part about a war in Taiwan as well as part of this video. I'm going to be basically giving my thoughts and reactions to the video. They have already started. They started their brainwashing again to the American public, trying to sell them the war in China now. And so I'm going to be talking about Biden. I'm going to be talking about their direction now into China. They're not interested in Ukraine or Russia anymore because everyone knows that Russia's winning and Ukraine is losing pretty badly. A lot of people are just turned off. And also media is just not reporting it anymore. They refuse to report it because their lies after lies are just not working anymore. It's not fooling the public. All of these lies they've been saying all these weeks that Russia's losing troops heavily, Putin's got cancer, Russia's troops are running away, they're leaving their posts, and all these ridiculous stories about Ghost of Kiev, and oh my god, I can go on and on. It's just not working. People are not buying it, and people know that this media is just BS, guys. It's just full of BS. So let me tell you this. Doesn't the world have enough problems right now? With everything going on in Ukraine, we got cost of living crisis everywhere. We got recession almost happening. We got the fuel prices. We got people in the West moving into poverty. We got the whole of the West putting sanctions after sanctions on Russia, and now they want to focus back on China again and start poking the big dragon. I mean, what the hell? What the hell is going on here? If there wasn't enough problems in the earth already. And don't forget, there's also problems with climate change as well. There's parts of the earth right now suffering from heat waves. Places like India and Pakistan, they got 41 to 45 degrees heat at the moment. And it's all down to climate change. You got America, Lake Mead, which is disappearing year by year. This year is the lowest it's ever been. And Lake Mead and Lake Powell basically provide water for most of the West Coast, and that's disappearing due to climate change. And then they have to go and start a fight with China, start a fight with the big dragon. I mean, what the hell is going on here? I mean, you've seen from the earlier clip I showed, both sides, not just China, but also the island of Taiwan, they both agreed on the one China policy. And the one China policy means that both China and Taiwan believe that there is only one China and Taiwan is a part of China. And this one China policy has been also agreed by the West, including America. And in the past, America has been very ambiguous whether they would come to the aid of Taiwan if there is a war in the Taiwanese Strait. And there would be a Taiwanese war in the Taiwanese Strait if Taiwan declares independence. And China has always said this. They have always said this. And America has always been vague. They have been selling weapons to Taiwan as well. And China has not been very happy. And recently, China has had a very good break from America and the West, because the whole of the West was focused on Russia. So those of you who don't know the history, I'm just going to very quickly summarize it. But basically, the ruler of China at the time, Chiang Kai-shek, who was the ruler of the Kuomintang party at the time, there was a civil war between the Communist Party and the Kuomintang party, and obviously the Communists had won, and they drove the Kuomintang party out of mainland China, and they all went to the island of Taiwan. So this civil war was going on, and China was mainland China was about to invade the island of Taiwan and to finish the civil war once and for all. And this is when America intervened, and they were sending aircraft carriers along the Taiwanese Strait, and they threatened China, saying if they invaded the island of Taiwan, they would literally nuclear bomb China. So China backed down, and the civil war between the mainland China and the island of Taiwan is still ongoing. It has not ended yet. And since then, they obviously agreed the One China policy. And a lot of you don't realize this, but the rulers in Taiwan still believe they are the main rulers of all of China, including the mainland China. So this is what the One China policy is. It goes both ways. So mainland China says that Taiwan is part of China, and the island of Taiwan believes that the people of Taiwan not only are the rightful rulers of Taiwan, but they're also the rightful rulers of all of China, including mainland. And this comes down from the civil war. It's still ongoing. It hasn't been resolved yet. And it's a very much an internal issue for China to resolve itself, not for America and outside parties to come in and get involved. But you can see the way things are going right now. Russia is winning, and the reporters don't want to report the war anymore. You see a big change in all of the media, in the papers, and suddenly I woke up this morning, and I'll show you what I saw. So this is the BBC News channel this morning, and you can see a huge article here about China and Uyghurs, and I'm thinking, oh, not again. I mean, haven't you had enough of these stories last year and the last few years? And look at the size of this article. It takes up the whole page. And if you go down in the BBC, then it talks about Boris, but you hardly see anything about the war anymore. There's nothing more about the war. There's nothing more. They're not hardly even mentioning the war in Ukraine. It's almost like all the media in the West have suddenly been told, you know what, stop reporting the war in Ukraine and start reporting on China. Let's focus on something else, because, you know, obviously Russia is winning. We don't want to report on this narrative. We don't want to tell the people that Russia is winning. We don't want to tell the people how badly the war is going. So let's kind of pick on China instead. And it's not just the BBC. If you go to every single paper in UK and most of the papers around the West, it's almost like they get sent a memo. You know, they get sent a memo saying, okay guys, let's collectively report on this, on China. And you just have to Google it and you'll see this, you know, article being reported on every single paper at the same time in the West. So there's definitely something going on here. There is definitely somebody who's controlling the media, and they control what goes out, what goes in. No media is allowed to report on anything that goes beyond the narrative or against what the governments don't want you to hear. And it's like a collaborative effort, and it's absolutely ridiculous, really. And you can see, you know, if you have an open mind, you can see what's happening around the world, and especially with the media, they kind of try and push the public towards a certain narrative, and they can see the narrative is not working in Russia now. Russia is winning and winning really good. You know, they're absolutely destroying the forces in Donbass. They've taken over Mariupol. You got thousands of people surrendering. You know, Azov surrendering in Mariupol, and you know the BBC even was reporting that these militants who surrendered were being evacuated. I mean, what kind of wording is that? What kind of journalism is that? How can, you know, it's like, imagine if America was in Fallujah, right, a few years ago, and they were fighting all of these ISIS guys and terrorists, and they were being holed up, and suddenly, you know, everybody in the West was saying, oh, these guys are heroes, they are, you know, they're being holed up in Fallujah, they are surviving the ongoing onslaught by the Americans, and suddenly they all surrender, and then suddenly the BBC says, oh, look at these heroes in Fallujah, you know, now they are being evacuated, they are heroes. I mean, imagine if Western papers reported it like that. They would be shut down. BBC would be shut down. Any other Western papers would be shut down immediately. You know, that is not the kind of news that the West wants to hear. So you can see the stuff going on in Russia, in Donbass. They don't want to report that anymore because they know the war is lost. You know, basically, they can't fool the public. And you just have to look at a lot of YouTube channels. And I'm not joking here. If you look at pro-Western YouTube channels who have got millions and millions of followers, I'm talking about channels like Visual Politic, and there's many others out there who have got millions of followers. And you look at channels like the Duran, and the Duran has got 200k followers, right? But if you look at the views that Duran it gets over 100,000 views or 150,000 views. And if you look at Visual Politics videos, they only get like 50,000 views, even though they got millions of subscribers. It just shows probably most of those subscribers are probably fake. Elon Musk recently did an audit on Twitter recently, and as you know, he said that 50% of Twitter users are just fake. And they use these fake Twitter followers to get the people to follow a false narrative. And that's what these media companies do. Twitter does it. YouTube does it. You know, the numbers don't lie. If you have millions of subscribers, right, you should at least get half of them watching your videos, or maybe even 3/4 of them. But no, millions of subscribers and only 50,000 views. Visual Politics, my ass. You know, even the YouTube channels who are following this fake narrative, they have been found out. People unsubscribing. You know, there's a lot of them out there, guys. I mean, a lot of them I used to follow as well. You know, Visual Politics, Caspian Report, and there's many others I used to follow for geopolitics news, until I realized they're just part of the collective West. They just follow this fake narrative, same as the West. And just makes you lose all respect for them, to be honest. So this is the main reason I've created this video, because this video has come out on MSNBC, and it's called War Games, the Battle of Taiwan. And they're basically going through a scenario of how a battle in the Taiwanese Strait will play out. And I found it quite interesting, but it's also absolutely hilarious as well. And it's absolutely funny because these guys, the so-called experts, know nothing about war, and they know nothing about China, they know nothing about Taiwan. And I just want to show you this video. It's absolutely hilarious. And this video was released by MSNBC because, again, they're changing goalposts now. They are moving their narrative to basically focus on China again, because they know Russia and Ukraine has been lost. And now they're going to focus on China, and every single news article is basically reporting on stuff like this, including in the West. And they are basically trying to brainwash the public into a war with China, and they are already sowing all of the seeds. And you can see the kind of reporting they are doing, and they are basically training the minds of Americans into believing that this war with China will happen. And I want to show you this video, and I'm going to go over it with you. I'm going to give you my reactions. But before I do, I really want to ask you guys for a favor. If you can, like, share, subscribe, do whatever you can to help support the channel. Lately, a lot of my videos have been getting demonetized, so I'm not making any money from YouTube at the moment. So your support makes all the difference. You can join my Patreon, or you can buy me coffee instead. And if you can't, then just make sure you like, share, subscribe, do what you can to help with algorithm. And also, I love reading your comments as well. Make sure you comment on the video as well. And without further ado, let's carry on with the show.
Welcome to another episode of Meet the Press Reports, where each week we do an in-depth exploration of a single topic. Today, we have a unique and special episode. This is a war game that takes a look at how the United States might react if China were to invade Taiwan, the self-governed island, a little bigger than the state of Maryland, that sits about 100 miles off the coast of mainland China at the junction of the East and South China Seas. And we wanted to know more about these war games. What do they look like? How do they unfold? What would it take to win, especially in this moment we're in and what's happening in Ukraine? So to find out, we worked with the Gaming Lab at the Center for a New American Security, CNAS. This is a think tank that specializes in national security. CNAS convened two teams to fight it out here in our Washington studio.
So I've not heard of CNAS, so let's see what they do. New American Security. CNAS engages in policymakers, experts, and the public with innovative, fact-based research, ideas, and analysis to shape and elevate the national security debate. We have a track record of attracting the best and brightest scholars and practitioners. We'll see about that. We'll put them to the test, shall we? And also here, we are committed to creating a diverse and inclusive environment. Sounds like a woke organization to me. I mean, this sounds like something coming out of Hollywood with their diversiveness and all that crap. Go woke, go broke, I would say. But if you look at the picture here, all I see is white people. I don't really see many other races apart from one or two. And guess what? Guess who used to be CEO of CNAS? None other than Victoria Nuland. So everything is starting to make sense. All the jigsaw puzzles are coming together, as you can see. So who do you think is funding this organization? And you can see here, the number one funder is Northrop, and you can, as you know, this is a defense organization, and they're giving them $500,000 and above, which is a lot of money. And plus the US Department of Defense, Secretary of the Air Force. So you can see they are all funded by military, defense experts, defense companies, and you know, you just can't take these guys seriously at all. Obviously they will want to push for war. They will try and come up with all sorts of BS. So let's see what they have to say, shall we?
The Blue Team, a group of defense experts, members of Congress, and a retired Air Force general who played the role of American defense officials on the National Security Council, advising the United States president.
Okay, so these are supposed to be so-called experts. But look at that idiot in the middle with the pink jacket on. What a KNOB.
And the Red Team, China experts, and the CEO of CNAS played the part of China's Central Military Commission, advising President Xi Jinping.
Oh my god, can you see the BS coming out of this channel and these people? Why would President Xi take advice of these bozos? I mean, President Xi has got enough advisors, and he doesn't want to be advised by these idiots from America, thinking they know it all, so-called China experts. But we'll see how much they know about China, shall we, and how much of a China expert they are as we watch this video. There is no way any of these bozos will be giving advice to President Xi, and nor does President Xi want any advice from these bozos. I mean, this is absolute BS, advising President Xi, my ass.
CNAS drafted the terms of the hypothetical conflict, set 5 years from now, in 2027, with China poised to launch a direct attack on Taiwan to force unification after Taiwan had elected new leadership, increasingly defying Chinese pressure. How would the U.S. respond? There were 3 rounds, and a game master from CNAS determining the new reality on the ground after each round. The red team had the benefit of proximity. The blue team had the benefit of allies and partners.
Okay, guys, so the red team is obviously China, and the blue team is obviously the US. So he's saying that the red team has advantage of proximity. Taiwan is only 100 miles from the mainland, so obviously they have a very, very huge advantage of that. And it doesn't matter if America has 1 million allies. If they come anywhere near the Taiwanese Strait, whether it's by ships or they'll be blown out of the water with hypersonic missiles. They will be blown out if they come anywhere near the Taiwanese Strait. And he says that this is a hypothetical war by 2027. By 2027, China's going to be much more stronger than it is now. It's going to have much more hypersonic weapons. So what allies do you think that America will get with them? It's just going to be the same group of collective West. It's just going to be the same group that's putting all of these sanctions on Russia. Exactly the same group. And don't you think China's got any allies? You know, you have North Korea sitting right next to South Korea right now, just waiting to pull the trigger. You have Russia as well. So even those three countries alone, you know, that's enough, more than enough match for America. I mean, America doesn't even have the guts to stand up against Russia by itself in Ukraine. How is he going to fight against China with Russia's help, with North Korea? They must be dreaming. Okay, you might think that maybe North Korea is not going to get involved, or maybe Russia's not going to get involved, and you could be right. You know, North Korea wouldn't get involved, but if South Korea gets involved, then North Korea will. And what do you think Russia's going to do? What do you think Russia's going to do when the West has been supplying weapons after weapons to Ukraine? Do you think Russia's going to sit there, do nothing? They're not going to forget this. And if there is a war in the Taiwanese Strait, they might not get involved militarily, but they will help China achieve its goals. They will provide China with anything that they need, whether it's weapon, whether it's oil, whether it's gas, anything they need. So don't tell me that China's not got any allies. It has.
Ports of debarkation for an invasion.
We want to focus on a last-ditch effort to deter. This is a time to be sending the strongest possible message to Beijing, both privately and publicly, that there will be very severe costs if they actually go through with this.
China is sort of...
So this is the same severe cost that they've been giving Russia with all these sanctions, and everybody in the world knows that these sanctions have been useless. They have actually hit the Western economy more than the Russian economy. And if they place any sanctions on China, you can guarantee that the inflation will go off the roof.
China has sort of seen our reaction to Ukraine, and we want to make sure that we're surprising them with how we react here.
So it's a good thing she's not the president, isn't it? Because don't the American people have a say whether they want to go to a war with China or not? Because if you're not going to react militarily against Russia over Ukraine, why on earth would America kill hundreds and thousands of American lives over Taiwan? Makes no sense. And they will lose hundreds and thousands of lives over Taiwan. China is no Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria. It's got hypersonic weapons, and any ships that come near the shores of Taiwan will be taken out of the water.
The Americans as hard as we possibly can in the Western Pacific, keep them out of the fight while we move on Taiwan.
I would support an early knockout punch against Guam.
From our point of view, a failed invasion of Taiwan is worse than the risk of conflict with the United States. We think that the United States is already going to intervene, and so we have to do a knockout punch before they can neutralize us.
Is the assumption that your assault on Guam is going to make the United States pull back?
We think it's going to make them militarily less effective. And so even if they desire to intervene, they won't have as much capacity to intervene on behalf of Taiwan.
I think.
So let me tell you something. China is not going to attack Guam. It doesn't need to. He doesn't need to. This guy doesn't know anything he's talking about. This guy is, probably been watching Pearl Harbor or something. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, they had the reasons. It was a completely different situation. China can win over Taiwan without even firing a single shot. All they have to do is blockade Taiwan, so no ship comes in, no ship goes out. And if any Western, military tries to intervene, they have to come all the way here using ships or submarines. They'll be taken out. They'll be taken out easily. And if America makes the first move, then China will go all out and they will start firing against bases in Guam, American bases all over Asia. They'll start firing against. But China is not going to fire first. I guarantee you that. And it doesn't need to. China wants to win over Taiwan without firing a single shot. They don't want to damage the infrastructure. They don't want to kill the people of Taiwan. The people in Taiwan are Chinese. They don't want to kill their own blood. They will blockade Taiwan. They will blockade all of the ports. They will suffocate Taiwan until it surrenders. And Taiwan will surrender when it sees there's no help coming from the West. And it will have no choice but to surrender. That's the Chinese strategy. And if America decides to attack China while they're doing this blockade, that's when all the gloves will come off. That's when China will attack Guam. They are not going to attack Guam for no reason. Not on the first shot. So this guy doesn't know anything he's talking about.
We start very forcefully with a missile bombardment on Taiwan. I think we want to bring their military to their knees.
Are you making an assumption that China is going to attack any of the alliance as they attack Taiwan or not?
I think China doesn't want to. They would like to tell the world that we're going to discipline our unruly province and it's none of your business, stay out of it. And if we stay out of it, they'll stay out of it. But if we decide to defend Taiwan, then I think they will attack our forces around the region.
The priority for
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So this guy talks sense. This guy is the only one that talks sense. The rest of them, I'm not sure.
the first 24 hours is to try to go as fast as possible against Taipei, right? I think it matters to deter United States, Japan, Australia, and other countries from intervening.
We learned the lessons from Ukraine when the Russians let Zelensky survive, and he organized resistance. He got international support, and we're not going to let Taiwan do the same thing.
I think we try to keep Japan neutral. I think you
hit them in the port before they get out, because otherwise we know exactly where they're going, which is toward Taiwan, and start shooting at us.
By hitting them in the port, you are guaranteeing that Japan is going to enter the conflict. Not sure that we can.
Would you rather take the American military station in Japan out to the greatest degree possible and have Japan enter the conflict, or let it steam toward Taipei, attack us, and have Japan maybe stay out of the conflict? Those are the two options.
You're going to attack Japan?
We are going to attack U.S. facilities on Japan, so U.S. air bases and U.S. ports.
Let me tell you something, guys. This guy does not talk for China. It's a good thing this guy doesn't have any links to China. He does not talk for China. He does not know what China will do. Then this guy doesn't have a clue what China will do. He thinks that China is going to start attacking military bases in Japan. China is not going to attack anyone first unless they attack first. You know, even China's nuclear option, they have a non-first use nuclear option. You know, they're not going to attack first. It's not what China do. This guy seriously doesn't know anything
that the U.S. uses in Japan. We are not yet going after Japanese air bases.
Part of this is communicating. You're not just taking on this little, rogue island that you see as your own, Taiwan. You're taking on the United States, Japan, Australia.
I'm sort of...
I'm laughing because she's talking about allies and stuff like that. The whole table, they're talking about American allies. And she's struggling to come up with allies. And she's come up with only two, Japan and Australia. What about the rest of them? Who else is going to come and die for American causes?
In the camp of...
And this guy in the pink jacket, he doesn't say a word. He just sits there looking like a NKNOB. Seriously, what the hell is he for? Just to look pretty?
Let's be as aggressive as possible, short of launching a preemptive strike, if that makes sense.
Regardless of which course of action the Chinese Red Team takes here, if we are prepared for the bigger fight, the potential large strike campaign, we are better off than if we assume that there's going to be a blockade or a lower level fight and then suddenly find ourselves in a much bigger war.
The insight that comes from this is you have to have a peacetime posture that allows you to be prepared to deter on day zero and fight if deterrence doesn't work.
All right, Stacey, high level here. What just happened with Move 1?
China's invaded Taiwan. It began by attacking Taiwan's outlying islands near the mainland. Then it followed it with a large air and missile strike on Taiwan and on U.S. bases in Japan and on U.S. bases in Guam and the Northern Marianas. In response to that, the United States followed up with bomber attacks on on Chinese ships in port, and there was an air battle over Taiwan where American aircraft flying from the Philippines came in and engaged in combat with Chinese aircraft that were trying to bomb Taiwan.
So, okay, guys, let me tell you this scenario. So, this is complete BS again. Like I said, China is not going to start attacking Guam and Hawaii and all of these Mariana Islands and Japan. Why would they? Why would they preempt to attack them? China has no need to attack American forces in the beginning. All they want is Taiwan. And I'm pretty sure, and I'm 100% confident that America is not going to intervene in Taiwan. All China has to do is blockade Taiwan, and Taiwan would surrender because they know the West is not going to come to their rescue. And if they do come to the rescue, then yeah, game on. Then China is going to attack Guam. It's going to attack military bases all over, including US military bases in Okinawa. And also, China's going to attack the military bases in Philippines as well. So see how this woman says American airplanes will fly from Philippines and attack Chinese bombers and airplanes. So how are they going to fly from Philippines if they're going to all of the Chinese, if the US military bases are all bombed out? If China can bomb all the way to Guam, they can easily bomb these bases in Philippines. And secondly, how do you know Philippines is going to allow American planes to fly from its territory and start a war from Philippines territory? I mean, last I heard, the new Philippine Prime Minister, who has just been voted, is very pro-Chinese. And he might not even want American air bases in Philippines. He might not want to get dragged into war with China. You know, so they're making a lot of assumptions that are not going to come true. The only way to defend Taiwan is to send aircraft carriers from America. That's the only way. And Japan has got no aircraft carriers, or no true aircraft carriers anyway. They are, they have some mini aircraft carriers which used to be helicopter carriers or some sort, and they're turning those into mini aircraft carriers. But Japan are not gonna get involved in a war with China because Japan's military doesn't even come close to Chinese military. Japan doesn't even have long-range ballistic weapons because they're banned from having long-range missiles and weapons because of the Second World War. They're banned from a lot of things, and all the military that Japan has been spending on, half of it goes on housing the American troops in Okinawa. Half the military budget goes there. And the other half basically gets wasted on F-35s and useless American weapons. Japan does not have military because America does not want Japan to be armed. The same way they did not want Germany to be armed after the Second World War. Japan does not have the arms or the means to fight against China. It just does not. And South Korea is not going to get involved in this war because as soon as South Korea joins in this war, North Korea will join in. And South Korea will no way join in this war. They will not allow any attacks from South Korea into China. They will not allow it because as soon as South Korea join this war, they know it's going to be game over for them.
So after move one, can you assess which team is winning?
I think it's a stalemate right now.
Oh, can you believe it? Can you see how this dumb woman is talking? She's like, I think it's a stalemate right now. Oh my god, it's a stalemate. Oh, nobody's winning. Oh my god, China is not that good. They don't have a good military. America's the best. Yeah, oh my god, it's a stalemate. It's not a bloody stalemate. You know, Taiwan is only 100 miles from China. If any war breaks out in the Taiwanese Strait, Taiwan would be finished. Do you even know how many missiles China has pointed at Taiwan? And they've been building up these missiles since the 1950s. And even now they are 3D printing missiles at a really huge rate. China has the biggest manufacturing capacity in the world right now. And do you even know how many missiles they can produce a year compared to Taiwan? It's almost like 1,000 to 1. You know, China's got all the raw materials. It's got everything it needs. And all it's been doing is pointing missiles at Taiwan. And now it's building up its nuclear deterrent. You know, if China wanted, Taiwan would be blown into smithereens within 10 minutes. You know, there'll be missiles coming from the mainland. There'll be missiles coming from all of the ships they have. There'll be missiles coming from all of these airplanes. There'll be missiles coming from the drones. You know, Taiwan would be literally gone. It'll be finished in 5-10 minutes if China wanted. So definitely not a stalemate. Definitely not.
China has strategically blundered by pulling Japan in, and the United States is still well positioned to defend, but China also has a lot of its assets left and has a lot of power that it can apply.
Okay, first of all, China has not blundered by letting Japan in. I think Japan would probably join in anyway because they are kind of a poodle to America right now. And I think it's a big mistake for Japan to join rather than a mistake by China. It's a huge mistake by Japan to join in. And if they do, you know, there is a lot of bad blood between China and Japan. It goes back to the days when Japan, you know, was colonizing most parts of China, and it caused so much genocide in China, killed so many Chinese people during the time. So there is definitely a lot of bad blood. And if Japan decides to join into this war, I guarantee you Japan as a country will not exist anymore, because China will go all out at Japan and they will not hold back. You know, they are holding back when it comes to Taiwan because they know the people living in Taiwan are Chinese. So they're not going to actively target any Chinese people. They're not going to actively target any infrastructure. They're not going to blow up any infrastructure, or they're going to try and avoid any civilian deaths. And, you know, they will blow up, however, military anti-aircraft guns, military outposts. They will, however, destroy that. But when it comes to Japan, again, there's going to be no holds barred. China is not going to hold back against Japan, and it's going to be a serious mistake if Japan decides to join into this war. Serious mistake. And not only that, you know, China is not going to attack Japan first. But if Japan decides to get in the action, or they use these military bases on Okinawa to send attacks to China, then yeah, they will be targets. And secondly, you know, the reason all of this Taiwan issue is happening right now is because of Japan. You know, Japan took away Taiwan from China, and back then it was called the Formosa Islands. And Japan basically invaded those islands, took the island away from China. And it wasn't until the Second World War, when Japan surrendered, that they gave that island back to China. So Chinese see all of these issues happening with Taiwan right now. It's all Japan's fault. And if Japan is stupid enough to get into this war, they will cease to exist. And I guarantee you that.
China went with a very aggressive strike campaign against U.S. forces and bases throughout the region.
The gloves are off, if you will. I mean, by attacking U.S. territory of Guam, killing Americans, the Chinese have crossed the line. I think they've also miscalculated already that they took some actions against U.S. forces in Japan that they thought would maybe prevent Japan from coming in. It actually drew Japan in. Same with Australia. How do we...
So the only two allies, if you notice, America's talking about is Japan and Australia. And poor Australians are... It seems like they don't really have much of a say. You know, they're going to be involved in this war, whether they like it or not. And America seems to think that Australians basically would be happy to join in this war. And if you look militarily, Australia is not a major military power. You know, Australia requires America's protection. So in terms of military, Australia does not have the means to make much of a difference in this war. It just doesn't. And, you know, if China wanted, you know, they've got, I think, about a few hundred submarines. They can send those to Australian waters and start taking out their ships. China will have long-range stealth aircraft as well, and they'll be bombing Australian targets. So Australia will be a target for China if Australia decide to come into this war. And China has the means to attack Australia. You know, China's going to be releasing a stealth aircraft called the H-20, and it is a stealth bomber similar to the B-52, B-2 bombers that America has. Very similar. So China will be doing bombing runs on Australian soil if Australia decides to join the war. Plus all the hundreds of submarines that China has, they'll be sending it to Australian shores and start taking out the ships, the ports, military installations. So it seems like Australia really is being dragged in, whether they like it or not. And I just think it's going to be a big mistake for Australia as well, because they're talking about this war happening in 2027, and by 2027, you know, China would have an even better military than they have now. By 2027, China's economy is going to be very, very close to the American economy, and it's going to be very close to even take over the American economy. If America goes into recession this year and China keeps a growth of maybe 4% or even 3% or 2%, they will take over America's economy by 2027 if America goes into recession this year, which means that their military will have a bigger budget. And what do you think China is doing with all this warmongering that's going on in the West? Now that they're targeting China, do you think China's going to sit back and relax? No. You know, their military complex is going to be working overtime. They're going to be building more missiles. They're going to be building more ships. They're going to be fast-tracking a lot of the missile technology. And they're going to be putting a bigger budget on their military. So China's going to be working hard. And they're going to make sure that they do not lose Taiwan at any cost, and they will do everything they can.
The fact that they aggressively hit Guam and Japan was frankly just a very quick way to make sure our allies were all in, and now we have Japanese resources willing to contribute to air and undersea. We have Australians willing to contribute and others coming on board.
So she's talking about allies and stuff. Again, the only allies that America can rely on right now is Japan and Australia, and they're not really much allies if you think about it. These countries, they don't really have much of a military budget, they don't have much of a military. So, you know, I feel sorry for the Japanese people, and a lot of Japanese people are actually anti-war. They do not want to get involved in another major war. And they know if they start getting involved in a war against China, most of them would be taken out very, very easily. And the fact that these Americans are taking for granted Australians and Japanese, and same way they have been using Ukrainian lives, they're going to be using Japanese lives and Australian lives and put them in the front line. Because guess who's the closest countries to China for bombardment? You know, Japan is the closest, followed by Australia. And America is far away from a distance. So they just, as long as they can use Japanese lives, same way they've been using Ukrainian lives, and Australian, same way they can use Australian lives as well. As long as Americans don't get killed, they'll be happy. And don't forget, Japan's major problem right now is demographics. They have more old people in Japan than young people. There's not enough babies being born in Japan. So when you're asking for Japanese young men to kill themselves, on this war over Taiwan, I really don't think Japanese people will go for it. I don't think Japanese people will want this war, but they're going to be dragged in by America. And these stupid politicians will probably drag all of these young Japanese men in and destroy the country even more. I mean, right now, Japan is having a huge stagnation where they've not been growing over the past 20 years. The economy has not been growing, mainly down to the demographics. Mainly they have more old people than young people. But if you're going to start killing off all of your youngsters in a war, then Japan would literally cease to exist.
My sense is that you need to at least take out the airfields in northern Australia. So at least try to.
So like Darwin and Tyndall?
Darwin and Tyndall. The fuel tanks are very important because that's how those planes get refueled. And the runways are important because they need somewhere to take off.
In Hawaii, you have both obviously American territory, which they seek to preserve, plus you have all of the naval and air assets that the Americans have dispersed back that way once this war started. So there's a lot of targets out there. They hit our ports in China. We're going to take the fight to Hawaii.
I'm a little bit hesitant to use conventional kinetic attacks in Hawaii just because I feel that will be interpreted as a Pearl Harbor in the United States.
Yep.
We could galvanize significant U.S. support.
China's big strike, which was in response to the U.S. Attacking its ports, was on Hawaii. And they launched their stealth bombers, which launched cruise missiles and hypersonic weapons against Hawaii. It took out the command center on Hickam Air Force Base, where they're controlling Blue Air Forces and commanding the air war. So an American state has now been attacked.
What was...
So I'm laughing because... I want to take you back to this. She's mainly talking about Hawaii being attacked and American people being killed and American bases being attacked. But you see these arrows which are heading to Japan and heading to Philippines. She does not mention anything about them. What about attacks on Australia? If you read back to what she just said, she has not mentioned anything about attacks on Japan, Philippines, Australia. All she's talking about is American lives in Hawaii. And again, it just shows Americans, they don't give a crap about any other lives. They'll be happily destroy every single Ukrainian life in Russia. They'll happily destroy every single Japanese life for this war. They'll happily destroy every single Filipino life, every single Australian. As long as Americans are not being killed, they are happily, they're happy to sacrifice all of these other countries' militaries just for their own sakes. And it's so funny, it's so ridiculous that she doesn't even mention these countries being attacked. She only mentions Hawaii. It's absolutely hilarious, guys. Absolutely hilarious.
Blue Air Forces and commanding the air war. So an American state has now been attacked.
What was the blue team's?
You see, American state has now been attacked, but she doesn't mention anything about Japan or Philippines. Crazy.
The blue team was focused on destroying China's big warships that provide a lot of air defense for the...
So the submarines are obviously an issue for China at the moment, because this is the only way they can attack Chinese ships. Because aircraft carriers are not going to come anywhere close because they will be taken out by hypersonic weapons. Also, a lot of the military bases and airfields will be taken out by China in Japan, in Philippines, in Australia. So submarines are the only way they can attack China. However, China has been building a lot of anti-submarine technology. They have airplanes which detect submarines. They have undersea sonar. They have built a lot of islands in the South China Sea, and a lot of them have radars, and they have a lot of underwater drones as well, which monitor the seas in the South China Sea. So if any submarines come from the South China Sea, they will be immediately detected. But if they're coming from the north, as you can see from here, China's only way to detect them is using airplanes and helicopters, which actually monitor for submarines. America has the same technology, so they'll need those monitoring helicopters and planes to be at full capacity, and they will have a lot of ships along the northern part of Taiwan, and they will be monitoring for submarines as well. And I think submarines are not as effective as they were a few years ago. Nowadays there are a lot of technology which managed to find submarines. There are technologies which can find and track submarines as well. China will be having a lot of drones flying around the seas and under the sea as well. So China will do everything they can to detect these submarines, and if they get detected, they'll be taken out. However, I still think they are still a weak link, and they will probably take out a few Chinese ships in the meantime as well. And as soon as the submarine fires at a Chinese ship and the Chinese ship gets taken down, China will be immediately able to find out where that missile had come from, and will be able to track that submarine after that. But I believe that China will be doing everything they can in tracking these submarines, and by 2027 they will have a much better technology to detect them. And they will be also taking a lot of technology from Russia as well. Russia has this technology to detect submarines as well. This goes back from the Cold War, when America and Russia were basically, monitoring each other's submarines and having the technology to monitor them and things like that. So Russia will be able to help during these times as well. Russia will be also deploying submarines along the seas as well, and helping China identify these submarines. And this is when Russia will be able to help China in a great capacity, not militarily, but they can give information to China. They can help monitor the seas and tell China, okay, we have this unidentified submarine coming from the north. We believe it's an American one, and then China will be able to take it out. So this is the time when China and Russia will be working together. And it will be like a revenge for Russia as well, because, America has been helping Ukraine to take out Russian troops and Russian ships and Russian airplanes. So Russia will do exactly the same thing to help China to take out American submarines. So if they can, this will be part of their revenge, basically.
The invasion fleet, so they had submarines within the strait. I would say right now the red team is ahead. They're starting to make progress towards their objective of actually gaining control over Taiwanese territory. But they have a long, hard slog in front of them.
After move 1, you said we were at a stalemate. After move 2, what would you say?
I would say that China has a slight advantage right now because it's actually ashore. So it has made progress towards achieving its objective. It still has a long way to go. But both sides are probably running low of some of the key missiles and munitions that...
I'm just laughing my head off here. So she says that China might be running low on key missiles and munitions. I mean, do you even know that China is the largest manufacturing country in the world? And it's basically the factory of the world, producing goods for the whole world, for the whole planet. There is no way in hell China will be able to be low on missiles. China has been building missiles since the 1950s, and most of them are pointing at Taiwan. This civil war has been ongoing since then. So China has been building up its military and military deterrence and missiles and technology since then. One thing that China will never be short of is missiles. I guarantee you that.
They use, so the character of the fight might change going forward.
All right, on to move 3.
I don't see anything in the game right now that means that the U.S. or the West would back down. I wonder if we could do a hem shot not over, but near where most of the U.S. forces are, because that would be clear signaling to them that we are serious about using nuclear weapons. But obviously, we wouldn't want it right over in this area at this point.
Oh my god, how stupid is this woman? Do you guys even know what this woman has just said? You know, I basically made some investigations of where this woman is coming from. She's not even Chinese. She's actually from Taiwan, and she's obviously got an anti-Chinese mentality, and she's probably a pro-separatist or something. So she's saying that China's gonna basically throw a nuclear weapon close to the Taiwanese borders. She calls it a hemp shot. It's more like a warning shot, apparently. You know, I can tell you right now that China has a non-first use nuclear options. It's part of their constitution. They are never ever going to fire a nuclear weapon first, especially along the shores of Taiwan, because Taiwan is part of their territory. This stupid woman has got no clue whatsoever. Even if you blow up a nuclear weapon in the sky as a warning shot, you know, you have all of the radiation to deal with. I mean, how idiotic is this woman? How stupid is she? I have never ever seen anything more stupid in my whole life. And this woman is supposed to be representing China in the red team. Oh my god, this is the kind of idiotic stupidity that we have to deal with in the West. Seriously.
So you're saying a demonstration explosion?
Yeah, at higher altitude.
And is this a bluff, or are we really willing to use nuclear weapons?
I think that depends on folks in the room, but I think in a no-kidding Taiwan scenario, if we are really facing the prospect of defeat, we should be willing to use nuclear weapons. It might not be nuclear weapons on Taiwan. It could be a tactical nuke against invading U.S. or intervening U.S. forces.
Oh, every time this woman speaks, I just feel like getting up and just shaking her. I mean, like, wake up, woman. Wake up your brain, you stupid woman. Oh my god, what's wrong with her?
A real big weakness is our inability to contest or threaten China's air superiority. We keep trying, but the difficulty is in our dispersed posture with limited access to tankers. We're not able to push enough tactical aviation forward over Taiwan to really maintain persistent air superiority or even just contest Chinese air superiority.
I think the key insight already in this game is if you have not spent years preparing for this, pre-positioning munitions, getting the Taiwanese ready, pre-positioning your own forces, developing your dispersal bases. If you haven't spent years preparing for this, then you're going to be behind the 8 ball the whole way.
The only things the Americans seem to declare defeat on is really, really long wars, not short, violent ones.
Exactly. Americans, they do not like long wars. I mean, you look at Afghanistan, you look at Vietnam, they don't have it in them to go the long haul. As soon as the body bags start coming home, as soon as America realizes the amount of money they are spending, they are not spending it to protect their own shores. They are spending it to protect the Taiwanese or the Chinese people living in Taiwan. You know, and American lives, we're not talking about a few hundreds here and there. For this particular war, you're looking at hundreds and thousands. I mean, if China takes out one aircraft carrier, can you imagine the amount of lives and money and equipment that America would lose? I mean, this is a war. You're not fighting against Syria or Afghanistan. You know, they're not here to fight back, or even Iraq in the second Iraq war, where America, you know, Iraq literally had no weapons, and America just destroyed that country. You know, it's not going to be a war like that, and Americans need to understand that a war like this is going to cost a lot in terms of life and in terms of money, and they're going to be ready for it for the long haul. But I can guarantee you that China is definitely ready for the long haul. You have to understand China to realize that Taiwan is part of their territory, and it's the final piece of their jigsaw of the 100-year humiliation. And this is the final piece that will finally unite all Chinese people, and this is the final part of the humiliation, of the 100-year humiliation. And if they can, you know, get Taiwan back reunified with the mainland, that will be it. You know, you will see Chinese people celebrating for generations, because this is the only thing that Chinese people want. And a lot of Chinese families who only have one child, by the way, because of the one child policy, you know, a lot of families only have one child, and they understand that if these kids go to war, you know, they will lose, you know, their only child to this war. And there was a vote taken in China about what people thought about if their only child goes into war to fight Taiwan and stuff, and everybody voted yes. All the parents voted yes. They said, you know, we understand that it's a huge sacrifice and we will lose our only child, but this is a fight worth taking. And you will see all of China united in this kind of regard. China is definitely in it for the long haul. They will go to it at the end, and this is what Chinese people are like. This is their mentality. But I can't say the same thing for Americans. You know, as soon as the body bags start coming home, you know, you will see huge protests in the street. You will see change of government, and they will pull the troops out. They will say, you know what, we've had enough of losing American lives. Let's pull the troops out. And that's what's going to happen. America does not like to go it a long haul.
Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever they wanted to go home, Vietnam, they wanted to go home. They get tired, but they don't get scared.
I think experience has shown that this bridgehead here, just like in Ukraine, it's not going to be over in a few days unless Taiwan capitulates. If you watch what happened in Ukraine, you know, the actions that were taken before the invasion were important, but so is continued resupply. With Ukraine, you have borders that you can move things across. Right. Taiwan's a long ways off.
Exactly. So imagine this, you know, if Taiwan suddenly has no oil, has no weapons, how are you going to resupply Taiwan? You can't. You know, Ukraine, you've got borders with Poland where you can you can ship goods into Ukraine and through the borders, and you can resupply Ukraine. But you can't do that with Taiwan. You're going to have to send ships to resupply Taiwan. And, you know, if basically Chinese have blockaded all of Taiwan, eventually Taiwan will have no oil. If China blows up all the oil depots and all the gas depots in Taiwan, they will have no oil left. So how are you going to run a military with no oil? You know, the only thing that Taiwan can do is, you know, basically counterinsurgency or, you know, urban warfare or things like that. But you can see Chinese troops going from house to house to take these guys out. And that's the only way they will win this war. And, you know, there is no way in hell that Taiwan can win. There is no way in hell that Taiwan can be resupplied. This is the final bit, guys. Let's see what they say.
So here we are after move 3. The blue team, the United States, seemed to try to do what it could to make command and control more difficult in the actual invasion itself of Taiwan and all of that. China and the red team wanted to send more of a message to the United States, attempting to strike Alaska and California, San Diego specifically, plus Hawaii again. So escalation everywhere, including a nuclear test by China to essentially make the United States take the nuclear option more seriously. So where are we now?
Listen, I'll say it again. China is never ever going to throw the first nuclear weapon. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's as a test or in the sky or whether it's a fake one. China has no nuclear first use option available. It's not part of the constitution. So these guys don't know what they're talking about.
Things spiraled really quickly. The headline is the nuclear test.
I hate this woman's accent. Does anyone get annoyed by this woman's accent? You know, it sounds like the movie you watch, Clueless. Oh, it's a stalemate right now. You know, it sounds like she's from the same school or the same college as those girls in Clueless. I mean, this woman, her accent really annoys me.
Which is unprecedented since World War II. We haven't seen limited nuclear use, certainly during combat. We don't know where things go from here. Mm-hmm. There were also the attempted strikes on the United States. China has continued to reinforce its lodgment on Taiwan, mm-hmm. but it's still very small and it's heavily contested. The U.S. is pushing in some of its ships now that munition stockpiles have gone down.
Right.
Again, I'll say this again, guys. if US sends any ships near Taiwan, they'll be blown out the water. You know, China has enough hypersonic weapons to take them out. These weapons will be either flying in from the mainland, or they'll be coming in from the ships, or they'll be going from the submarines, or they'll be coming from airplanes or drones. Either way, any ships that come nearby to either supply Taiwan or get involved will be taken out easily.
To try to support them, and it looks like we're in for a long, hard fight.
So, best case scenario is that it's a ground war in Taiwan. Worst case scenario is we're starting to have some nuclear exchanges.
Yes. China still has its intercontinental ballistic missiles that are nuclear armed, but it also has the ones that can range Guam and sort of this area that it could use, which has...
Can you see what this woman has said? She says, China can target Guam and this area, and this area. She was covering Japan. She was covering all of these other Asian countries, which are really insignificant to Americans right now. They don't really care about Japanese lives or Japan as a country. She just said this area.
have nuclear warheads.
Well, there are a lot of lessons to take away from this. This was fascinating, and I can't wait to get to the...
So that's it for today, guys. I just wanted to, talk about this video with you and give you my feedback, my reactions, and obviously I don't condone war, and if a nuclear war happens between the two countries, then nobody wins. I hope we never get to that stage, but it looks like definitely the West is focusing on China again, and they are escalating things heavily with China now. Looks like they're either bored with Russia and Ukraine, or they just don't care anymore. And yeah, that's it. That's all I have time for today. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, do whatever you can to help the channel, helps the algorithm, or if you can support me on Patreon, or you can buy me a coffee instead. So thanks for listening, guys, and I'll see you soon.